And I'm really impressed. You guys have done what I have not seen very often in franchising is opening as many company-owned locations before franchising. So you really mastered this. I mean, considering you had owned the business for 10 years and you guys have now 21 corporate locations, right?
That's right. And, we really, and I'll credit my two partners on that, having been from franchisees formerly. It really has been our mindset since day one. We knew when we acquired the brand that we were going to utilize franchising as a method of our growth. We knew that from day one. But what we also knew was we didn't want to be the kind of franchisor that we had experienced in the past. We wanted to, really be a franchisee first franchisor. And, in order to do that, we wanted to, like we just said, figure out all these problems in advance, have a proven concept, have a number of locations, but then really in the few years leading up to franchising,
Mm-hmm.
we realized, what else we've done here too? We've made it where we can choose very specifically our franchisees because we have such a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to make sales. We don't need to make franchise sales. Unlike other concepts that maybe, have one or two or three locations and then try to franchise,
Right.
they have to sell. I mean, they got to sell to survive. We
That was me, by the way.
well, you do what you got to do. But with us, it's like, we were royalty self-sufficient before we sold our first franchise,
Oh,
which just gave us so much strength and so many more options and time, and that's
mm-hmm.
why we're really happy and proud of the franchisees we have now. We have a great relationship with them. They're performing really well. And, the groups we're even talking to now about coming on with franchising, we just love that, there's no really the only urgency is just because we're excited about the opportunity, not because of
Sure.
anything financial,
Right. Right.
So
When you guys acquired the Big Biscuit and you had your two partners, obviously former franchisees, was the goal to buy a business that you were going to franchise, or did that come in after the fact?
it was right about the time we were acquiring it because we saw after again them being in the franchising world, but then seeing
Mm-hmm.
what the brand was, it just occurred to us like this could go anywhere. I mean, it's just such a likable, flexible brand. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's got to be part of our thing. I mean, we know that if we can make this work and we can teach someone else to do it, there's no stopping this brand.
Right. Right. Oh, absolutely. So ultimately, when you decided to franchise, it was early on, but you waited the 10 years. Tell me about that transition. It can't be easy when you're running company-owned locations. You control everything, and now suddenly you're a franchisor, and the game has changed. And I know your two partners understand that from being franchisees. It's a different game.
Absolutely. But they'll even say, and if they were here, they would say the same thing. It's hard, right? I mean, franchising, it's not the same business.
Mm-hmm.
Just like for us, being a franchisor of the Big Biscuit is a completely separate function in business than having our own restaurants. And that was definitely a very humbling experience of going through. Like, I went into franchising thinking, I know this business like the back of my hand. I've been working in these restaurants for a decade. I've
Right.
hired everybody on this team. Like, I know everything about this brand. And then I realized, okay, that doesn't mean I know franchising.
Exactly.
And so
Right.
that's been such a fun ride of getting to learn this new business alongside. And it's made us better all the way through. But yeah, I mean, I would say that's the thing is going from operating to franchising, even if it's the same concept, it is not the same business.
Yeah. Well, how big is your team considering the amount of corporate locations you have, and now and obviously franchising being a huge initiative?
Yeah, we're really proud. Our franchisor team, we have 14 people in our headquarters right now that cover all the functions that our franchisees need, from marketing, PR, supply chain, IT, administration, operations, all the different facets. We've got very specialized people to support, and it helps not only our franchisees, but like you said, our corporate operations as well, because we're basically a franchisee of ourselves.
Sure. Chad, there's like what, 4,000 franchise brands that are out there, opportunities. I'm curious, what's attracting franchisees to you? Is it people who have come into the restaurant and love the food, or is it people that just strictly have a business background? What have you seen so far?
But like you said, it's been predominantly people who love the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And even our franchisees now have, in their own words, separately said, I love this brand for the opportunity, but I love it as a consumer. It's somewhere that I want to eat. It's somewhere that I enjoy, and it's something I can be proud of. And that's really, as I've talked to people who have either just sought us out because they've tried our restaurants or they've seen us, at a trade show, they always want to talk about how they love the brand. It's very rare that I'm talking to someone who is love your numbers. Even though we have
Right.
great numbers and we're very proud of them, it's that it resonates with them that they love what it is.
Cool. What kind of person do you think thrives in your franchise system? Who are you looking for specifically?
Someone who wants to be really engaged with the business. Our operations, our opportunity is set up where if somebody wants to be an owner operator, they obviously can.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also set up where this can be, something that is, less hands-on, but really we want our franchisees to be engaged. Someone who's a part of the community, someone who gets in and understands the concept, goes through the training process, so we can have conversations when we're talking about menu. We love feedback from our franchisees. We just recently rolled out a pretty significant menu change, probably our biggest one we've ever done. And I really enjoy getting to talk to our franchisees through that design process of the new menu. And that wouldn't be possible if they weren't really hands-on and understood the business of what our guests are asking for, how it's going to affect the operations, not just the numbers. And so that's a really long way of saying, someone who loves hospitality, someone who wants to be really engaged and understand the business for more than just the numbers, and, be good stewards, be in the community. And, one of our big pillars is community. We love getting involved and giving back and doing donations, and, we need franchisees who believe in that as well.
Sure. And I understand from our previous conversation that you're actually seeking multi-unit franchise operators, in larger markets, right?
Yeah. So we're so far 100% multi-unit franchisees. We do offer single unit territories. We've just so far found franchisees that want to go dive in and because they're ready. But yeah, we're really, I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain it forever, but we're really trying to avoid as much as possible having multiple franchisees in markets.
Sure.
We want franchisees who want to commit to, whatever size market it is and then take it. So that way they can just focus on them and their business and not feel like they're competing with another franchisee.
Yeah.
But we do offer both in single and multi-unit territories.
And tell me about the multi-unit franchise conference. I understand you just came back from there, and what kind of feedback did you get?
Oh gosh, for anybody who has not gone to multi-unit franchise conference and you're in the franchise world, you need to go. It is so well done. And as a matter of fact, I went for the first time last year and was blown away, so much so that we decided we need to be an exhibitor. So we went back again this year and had our debut as an exhibitor, and the reception was just wonderful. There's so many successful, like-minded people in there. The amount of industry knowledge in that conference, you can't put a price tag on it. And, just getting to see all the brands that are out there, their different offerings, but then also getting to expose yourself and gain knowledge. They've got great breakout sessions and keynote speakers, and it's a powerhouse 2 days. And again, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different than your regular IFA conference or Springboard, of course. I always think of multi-unit franchise conference. Now, I have not been to, but I think of the multi-unit franchise operator, typically a more sophisticated buyer, somebody who, of course, has some franchise experience. We don't want to sell a franchise to anybody who hasn't owned one before. But I would imagine that kind of played a role into just, the camaraderie and the kind of discussions that you had during the conference.
Yeah, it really is pretty incredible. Even sharing knowledge between competitors. I mean, there were there were a few other competitors there in my space, and we were, giving each other advice and bouncing ideas off each other just because, we all recognize that, even though we may be competing for the same franchisees, it's better to help each other win than try to, tear each other down or sell away. So, it's like, we scratch each other's backs, and it's just really refreshing.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.